Hello and welcome back. Now, just for the advert break, I brought you some fresh news hot off the press that a 29-year-old woman and two men aged 36 and 24 have been arrested on suspicion of a terror offence after two Voyager aircraft were damaged at RAF Brize Norton in an action that was claimed by campaign group Palestine Action. That's according to Terrorism Policing in the South East. Let's speak now to Jake Wallis Simons, author of Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred, and what to do about it. Is this what to do about it? Prescribing Palestine Action. Is that going to solve the problem, Jake?
Well, certainly they need to feel the full force of the law. They've already committed various offences in breaking into one of our RAF bases and sabotaging the planes that form part of our national defence. That goes without question. But I think that in taking the step of trying to proscribe them as a terror organisation, Sir Keir Starmer is setting himself up for a showdown with his own party. It was interesting to see that Nigel Farage suggested it in the morning, taking this step, and by the afternoon, Sir Keir Starmer had adopted it as his own policy, suggesting rather that he's trying to match the unofficial opposition pound for pound. But this legislation's got to get through both the Parliament and the House of Lords, and there are a lot of MPs on his own side, 11 of them who've come out publicly in support of Palestine Action, and more who may vote against this legislation, not to mention the House of Lords, which is full of a large contingent of people with views that might not align with many of the viewers and listeners today. And so I think that he really, in going for this sledgehammer option, he set himself up for a big show. And it's a difficult thing to do when there was existing legislation that could have been enforced properly to deal with this problem.
I mean, this is it. What they've done is committed criminal behaviour. Some might even say treason if you're attacking the UK's ability to defend itself. But taking the step to actually prescribe something as terrorist is quite drastic. I mean, this nation doesn't even prescribe the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, who actually commit atrocities on our shores and are very clearly terrorist. What do we actually know about Palestine Action as an organisation? Do we have any sense that they're getting sort of dodgy foreign funding, or they have connections to some pretty evil outfits? Or is this just a move, a bit like the reaction to the Southport riots, to act as a severe deterrent against anybody who might think of doing exactly this sort of thing?
Very good question. I mean, I think Palestine Action really are on the cusp of being a terrorist organisation, in that they don't have ambitions at the moment to launch suicide attacks, to launch stabbing attacks, to launch car rammings or anything of that sort, which is what you would normally associate with terror with a capital T. As you rightly pointed out, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps actually is a state terror arm and has not been prescribed by the government, which has preferred to use other legislation to try to suppress it. So Palestine Action it's quite an uncomfortable place for it to be put, and there's a sense that it might backfire on the Prime Minister by giving an argument to the other side where they can say, look, you're just calling us terrorists when we're not. The state is trying to smear us when we're just standing up for humanity, or whatever they're going to say. In terms of the funding, I mean, certainly there have been allegations that Palestine Action has received some dark money from maybe from Qatar or from other sources of Islamist bankrolling around the world. But so far as I know, that has not been proven in the UK. Perhaps further investigation under terror legislation might unravel some of that. But either way, what they do really is focus upon radicalising people to stand up allegedly for the Palestinians, but really against Britain, the West and Israel, against our national interest. That's their raison d'etre. They're not jihadis, but they are as close as you can get to jihadis from the woke left, if you like. So they're a problematic organisation. They could be a gateway to actual terror, and that is a real concern. And in attacking RAF bases and damaging our means for protecting and defending the realm, they've really taken a step into a whole new world of operations where they could become a proper national security threat if this does expand across other military infrastructure. As the Telegraph revealed just this morning, that is their plan at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. Brilliant. A scoop by the Telegraph, who have managed to infiltrate Palestine Action and was part of one of their online meetings where the tactics being discussed included breaking into factories, hitting everything you can find with a sledgehammer, and talking about identifying 3 RAF bases suitable for attack: RAF Cranwell, RAF Barkston Heath in Lincolnshire, and RAF Valley in Anglesey, where, of course, the Prince of Wales once served. But My sort of wonder about this is, to me, the logical next step, if you're going to make Palestine Action a terrorist organisation, if Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis are all terrorist organisations, how on earth, when you've got the, crowds of people snaking through London every weekend, banging the drum for Gaza, how on earth do you know which people in that particular crowd are part of these organisations? Is the next logical step, therefore, to finally turn around and go, that's it, no more pro-Palestine marches, which is what other European nations have done?
Well, don't forget, I mean, if you're prescribing Hamas as a terror organisation, you don't have to be a member of it to be guilty of a crime. You could only need to be expressing support for it, and that includes glorifying its actions and its beliefs. And so there's a lot of legislation which is not being rigorously applied to these marches that take place on a regular basis through central London and elsewhere. And I think that really gets to the heart of the problem. Palestine Action are only able to come about because of the overall permissive attitude towards Palestine activism, allowing them to cross line after line while the police treats them with kid gloves. We saw a case just in the news yesterday where, after the Prime Minister said he was going to proscribe Palestine Action, there was a pro-Palestine Action demonstration in London. And some Israeli supporters stood up to it, waving a few Israeli flags against a sea of Palestine flags. And the police attempted to arrest the Israeli supporters, for their own safety, lest they would be killed or attacked by the Palestinian side, defending a group which is actually literally about to, we think, be prescribed as a terrorist organisation. So this topsy-turvy world allows this permissive attitude towards Palestine activism, much of which gets very close to the line of illegality or even crosses that line, while people who are trying to stand up for our values are treated with an exaggerated application of the law, if you like. And it's in that atmosphere that groups like Palestine Action can really take the mick, can grow, can expand, and can begin to push the envelope further and further. I think that if the government and the police would have taken action sooner against smaller infringements and offences, then we wouldn't find ourselves now having to use terrorist legislation to stop the problem as it goes out of control.
I mean, talking about the sort of two-tier policing, I think indicative of this is the fact there's one particular Palestine protester dressed as a Holocaust victim, and instead of having the star, they put the crescent and star, the Islamic symbol, instead. I mean, that is without doubt disgusting. It's in sickening taste. And you kind of have to ask yourself, if this was done the other way round, if there was something which was supposed to be offensive to Islam, someone's feet wouldn't even touch the ground before they were whipped off and put in a prison cell.
Well, that's just it. I mean, this person, they're out of work. Are they mentally ill? I don't know. They're certainly engaging in rather eccentric activity on the streets. Is it offensive? Of course it's offensive. The Holocaust is something which is perhaps sacred, though not with a capital S, to Jews, because it was the world's worst modern genocide, mechanised genocide. And it's been weaponised politically so much. So, of course, it was deeply offensive. Now, look, I'm not one to start advising the government or the police to start to crack down on offensive speech or offensive actions. I think that there's too much of that going on. But the government is. The police is cracking down. I think they're arresting 30 people a day for causing offence online. And that's before even we include non-crime hate incidents, which add another further 30 or 40 a day, every single day. That's what they're doing. And the action they took against that man who burnt the Quran, finding a way to incriminate him and find him guilty when the existing legislation wasn't really adequate for it, because it shouldn't have been illegal. They accused him of being in the wrong because he was attacked, rather than his attacker being the one in the wrong, although they're also in the wrong. He was in the wrong. It shows how provocative he was being and how illegal his action should be. So they clamp down on that sort of thing, but then leave people who do similarly offensive things to Jews to run free and do it on the streets to their heart's content. So I think it's not that I want more policing of offence. I just balk against the double standards that's evident throughout the policing system, coming from the top, really, from the government downwards. That's the culture that we're living in right now.
How scared are you, or how worried are you, or concerned are you, in the context of everything that's happened in the last month? The U-turn on the grooming gang's national inquiry, a conversation we definitely need to have, discussing the common denominator of the perpetrators of what is one of the most sick scandals that's ever been committed in the UK. Amidst revelations on crime statistics, particularly those when it comes to the treatment of women, amidst growing terror threats given geopolitical instability. In the middle of this entire context, this government are having secretive conversations to define Islamophobia. How much does that worry you?
That worries me a great deal. In fact, the idea of proscribing Islamophobia, creating a criminal offence of Islamophobia as different to overall racism, which of course is banned and hate speech is banned already. I mean, that's really worrying because it enables Islamists with special interests to weaponise the law to enforce a new blasphemy crime upon the British people. And we've seen that actually in action during the grooming gang scandal, because the definition of Islamophobia, which was adopted by Labour in 2019, continually cited accusing Muslims of being involved in grooming gang or child sex rings, as it's more properly known, as an example of Islamophobia. And many of the people who advised on the production of that definition were themselves linked to groups that have been banned by the government or non-engaged, the government not refusing to engage with them, or have been otherwise accused of links with extremism, with the Muslim Brotherhood and so on. And so a picture begins to emerge of our law being weaponised against us by Islamists who have learned to play the game and who are using our democratic levers against us, and creating a new offence of Islamophobia would enable them to be beyond criticism, because they're able to say that, you know, it's illegal to criticise us, and then it further emboldens them to change our country in their image, which is something which most of us certainly do not want.
No, I couldn't agree more. I find it utterly chilling. Jake, thank you ever so much for coming back on the show. It is always a pleasure.